Okay, welcome back. So we were talking about the pendulum swings and how there is a need for a coming together. There is a need for dialogue on both sides. And you're not, at least when the politicians are posturing, you will see that they're not. And here's the thing, we've seen examples of two opposing sides, two individuals that would be like, who, okay, let's, Chris Cuomo, Tucker Carlson. I still remember the first time that they did a podcast or an interview together, and I watched it. And I loved it because, like, Chris even like chided Tucker Carlson because when Tucker was at Fox and Chris Cuomo was at CNN, they were throwing bars at each other, and Tucker was much better at being, as he put it, a D. You know what the word is, at Chris. But they did sit down together, and with that, they have a discussion as to what politically what is going on, and let's talk about our positions, and how, yeah, we may differ and agree to disagree, but then they were able to discuss things that they actually were like, you know what, you have a good point, and there's another good point. They were a great example, and I was so, not that they need my kudos and proud, but I was like, yes, I love this, because here you have two men that were in journalism that were or are representative probably of two divergent ideologies politically wise, were able to come together. And they didn't just do it the first time, they did it a second time recently, last month, March. And again, it was one, entertaining, hugely entertaining. So I'm giving props to those two. But also the fact that they are so extremely knowledgeable and were able to discuss these issues and joke around at the same time shows you that there was a forming of a camaraderie. There is a, I don't know if they're best friends, but I would say it looked like there was a friendship that budded, that never would have occurred if they did not sit together. And then let's go to another great example of two opposites. I mean, we're talking opposites. And Kid Rock came on Bill Maher's show. For those of you who know, Bill Maher, long time liberal. I mean, he states, he even still, even though he wasn't really gung ho about Kamala Harris's campaign, Bill Maher went and invited Kid Rock, who is a friend of Donald Trump's, a big proponent of MAGA and stuff, invited Kid Rock to appear on his show. And they had an amazing dialogue. And it was funny and comical. And honestly, I was super impressed with Kid Rock because you only think of him as the rocker, you know, um, and his ability to say this. But then Kid Rock basically was like, you know what, Bill, you need to come to the White House. You need to meet Donald Trump personally and sit down with him. And it happened. And Kid Rock even said that Bill's like, are you sure about this? Because, Bill Maher attacked the would go out and on the attack and in his comedy routines, but also say all these things about Trump. And Trump, I mean, apparently Bill Maher made a list of all of the insults and the attacks that Trump did on Bill Maher. And Kid Rock's like, no, we started this conversation. We opened a conversation. Let's continue this. I'm calling up my man Trump, and I'm having you invited to the White House so you two can sit together. And it happened. And Kid Rock, later stated that it was amazing because here you have two men that, at least in the media portrayal, were complete opposites. And we're talking Kid Rock, Bill Maher, we're talking Bill Maher and Donald Trump. And he said it was a beautiful thing because, as Kid Rock stated, and I'm paraphrasing, at some point you have to put aside your political affiliation and the R, the D, the MAGA, and the woke, or whatever it is that you affiliate, sit down at a table and talk about what do we have in common. Now, Bill Maher has been canceled by many people, or attempted to be canceled by many people, and has had a lot of stones cast in his way, directed to him, because of his vocalization of his anti-woke thing. His vocalization saying that the transing children and everything was wrong, or in his vocalization that yes, we have to have a strong border. So there has been some opening there because Bill Maher has been very vocal. I mean, Bill Maher was just recently interviewed on Gavin Newsom, governor of California's podcast, and about how he has dealt with a lot of flack, and he's going to have a lot more flack by visiting Trump and having dinner with Trump. And that dinner was President Trump, Kid Rock, and the UFC guy. I can't remember his name. Sorry, I'm not a UFC fan, but you know, there's something to be that's something to behold to. Like, look at how you have people who have thrown barbs at each other, and I mean nasty ass barbs too, sitting down together, or Bill basically calling out Gavin, going, well, I see that you're coming out to more to the middle, or at least Gavin, whether it's his positioning, trying to say, look, I'm more of a moderate, and because he has eye on the prize for 2028, or is Gavin Newsom really being honest and genuine, and that he's saying we need to bring people from opposing views and to open the dialogue because we have so much more in common. Or as we saw from this last election, that the people want us to come together. And so I'm going to tell you, Gavin's podcast, I'm enjoying this Gavin. Gavin's very articulate. He is well spoken. Now, he has huge hurdles, which Bell pointed out, like, hey, you can't say that you're here for common sense or in the middle when you signed into legislation, into law, where kids can be removed from parents if they say they're trans and their parents don't know about it, or their parents may want to seek therapy before saying, yes, you can go through these medical procedures. So Gavin also has a lot to explain because let's face it, he was the face of the woke administration for California and how things were going, and now he's doing this. But to Gavin Newsom's credit, he keeps saying it is so vital for us as a country to sit down and realize that the Democratic Party has been so far off the mark. And much of that mark is because they have stopped listening to the common person and they're only listening to an extremism. And that's where we have to be vigilant, because we, the people, and I'm talking to you, the 70%ers, the 80%ers that are looking around going, what the hell? We are not way over here and we're not way over here. We're here. We want people to come together and talk about the commonality. And I do find hope that we are now seeing on both sides of the aisle, at least in the media, at least in, hey, even President Trump welcoming people from the opposing side, saying, you know what, let's have a dinner together. Let's have a coffee. Yes, it may be all off record, but let's talk about what we have in common. And then on these major issues that we seem to be so lockstead, like two brands battling, like we're against, okay, let's break down those issues. Because you do have this gargantuan issues and you can be totally opposite. But if you break it down, you may be surprised to see how much we do have in agreement, and how much we have in common, and where we can build on that and then go, okay, little by little. Okay, here we are. Until then, we're like, okay, here are the few issues where we're so far apart, but we have all of this in common. How can we make this come together? That was what was so remarkable about Congress in the 80s, the 90s. It was remarkable. Look at the administration for Bill Clinton. I say all the time, I always look to Bill. I look to Ronald Reagan too. Those are really the ones. Ronald Reagan, I was little. Um, George Herbert Walker Bush, president, he was known as the true moderate president. He probably was because of his experience, both not only as a military veteran and director of CIA, but he knew the importance of working together. But Bill Clinton, when he went first into the administration, he was all about his position and stuff, and he quickly learned once the midterm came and the Republicans won the House, first time in 30 years, that time, that he was going to have to work with uh, Newton, and he would have to build collaborations. And you know what he ended up doing? Was probably one of the most amazing presidential administrations. He worked with the opposing side. He built collaborations. He built relationships. He was able to streamline our federal government. Remember, he had massive layoffs. He was redoing all types of contracts, much like what Doge is trying to do now in the Trump administration, because of the deficit that we were doing. And he created a surplus government that was paying down the deficit. We are a nation looking at $36 trillion in deficit. We need to get our act together, because if not, we're going to go bankrupt, and what we know as the United States of America will be no more. And that will be on our children, our grandchildren. So I leave you with that. How can we build bridges? How can we talk about commonality and bring consensus and common sense back to how our nation is run, our states are run, for the betterment of our children, our communities, and the nation as a whole, and then eventually the globe. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Thank you so much for appearing or for coming and joining me for another episode of We the People. I love coming here, being able to discuss these issues, but also to be representative of what is the greatest part of this nation, and it is you, the people. I bid you a good night and a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on our next show.